Hi guys, it's Kelly, and this video is going to be my replacement for my July wrap-up. Usually I read enough books in the month that I do both a mid-month wrap-up and an end-of-the-month wrap-up because I like to be able to have time to talk about the books in depth. And this month I did do a mid-July wrap-up, which I'll link down below, and I did that right before I left for vacation, and then kind of reading fell apart, and I started a bunch of books in the second half of the month, but only finished 2. And so instead of doing a wrap-up, this video is kind of a combination of what I read on my vacation, what I did while I was there, and then I'll review the 2 books that I actually read. So I'm going to chat a little bit about my vacation to begin with, and then get to the books. And then at the end of the video, I also have like some clips, because I didn't do a vlog while I was on my vacation, but I compiled like a little video of my vacation if you want to see it. So I'm going to put timestamps below, so if you want to skip right to the books, you can see where I start talking about the books down in the description. And then also I'll have a timestamp for when my like video compilation of my vacation happens if you're interested in that. But first I just wanted to chat about like what kind of happened on my vacation that kind of made my reading fall apart. So this vacation turned out to be, I don't even know how to describe it. It had some major roller coasters, some ups and some downs. And if you, you might have heard a little bit about it before I left, because I did an original tag called the Off the Grid book tag, which if you're interested in doing that tag or watching it, I'll link that down in the description. And I created that tag because I was inspired by the vacation we were going on. And the reason is because we were going on a vacation where we would be completely off the grid in the middle of nowhere. And so where we ended up going was a place called Holden Village, which is a retreat center in the middle of the Cascade Mountains in Washington State. And so like to get to this place, it takes a lot to get there. So we flew from Illinois to Seattle, then we drove 3 hours to a boat ramp, and then from the boat ramp you take a boat up Lake Chelan, and the boat ride's about 2 hours, and then when you get off at the boat you have to be on a bus to go up the mountain to this village. So it's really in the middle of nowhere. There's like nothing else. The only way to get there is by this boat or to hike in, which could take a couple days. So, and some people do that. A lot of people that go there are hikers because it's in the middle of the national forests in the Cascade Mountains. And so a lot of people will go and use Holden Village as their like home ground and then like backpack around that area. And there's also a lot of day hikes and stuff like that if you are like us and just want to go and not like camp overnight. You want to just take some day hikes and everything. So that was our original plan, was to go do a lot of hiking, spend a lot of time just relaxing outdoors because it's just a beautiful retreat center. There's no internet or phone reception, so you don't get like distracted by technology. You can just spend time with family, and they have activities there. They have speakers. They have daycare in the mornings for kids, so we were supposed to be able to like drop our kids off and go do stuff. Well, things kind of fell apart. So when we got there, we were told that a stomach virus was going around the village. And like I said, this is in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere for you to go. So we're like, okay, great. We're gonna get the stomach virus, because the way they do this is you live in community, so the bathrooms are all like dorms. So like we had our own room as a family, but we shared a bathroom, and the dining room is like everybody, staff and guests, all eat in the same dining room. So there's no way to escape people that have germs, because they're gonna have to eat and they're gonna have to use the bathroom. So you're gonna share space. So we're like, so the beginning of our vacation was a lot of that like doom that we were gonna get sick, and constant like hand washing and trying to keep the kids from touching stuff, which is impossible when you have small kids. And then like we were meeting our other family there, so like my in-law, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, my other sister-in-law, and my 2 nephews who are in the upper teens, so they're older than my kids, and they had all been there from the time that the stomach virus started, because they got there before us. And so we're like, okay, well they've already been exposed, so we're gonna get it. And we got there on Sunday, and our first nephew got the flu that evening. And of course he had been holding our baby like all evening because he's interacting with his cousins and all that stuff. So Monday was just like people dropping like flies. Tuesday my husband got sick, so I had the kids by myself. I decided, let's go on a little day hike. Took a hike, come back, my 3-year-old gets sick. So I send her off with my husband so they could be sick together, and me and the baby are doing stuff all day. I was like just exhausted, and like I was feeling like I think I might be getting sick, but I was like, no, I cannot get sick because I have to take care of this baby. That evening, my sister-in-law saw me. She knew that I was getting sick, so she took our baby. I got the virus that night. And then this is a virus that it was like really fast, the amount of time that you're actually physically sick, but then you're like exhausted for a long time afterwards. Like your body's just completely drained. So basically we were not well enough to do anything until Thursday. So we got there on Sunday, dealing with the sickness. It was Thursday before I could walk more than like a block without taking a nap and could actually like eat food. So at that point we started like, okay, now we're gonna do stuff, as we only had 3 days left in our vacation. And so we took advantage of the daycare for a couple days and did some like classes and things, went on a couple little hikes, and then my brother-in-law really wanted to go on a big hike, like a full day hike where we would eat out there and everything on Saturday. So think about this is after we've had the stomach flu, been exhausted, we have 2 children that we're gonna have to carry, and I think he downplayed a little bit the hardness of this hike. I have hiked plenty, just not necessarily recently since we've had kids, but this was like basically like up a mountain. I mean, not like with climbing equipment, but like switchbacks, very steep. I'm like carrying the baby in the carrier. At one point I had to switch with somebody else and just carry the backpack because it was like too much for me. And we were walking basically for 7 hours that day, and that's after like having the stomach virus. And granted, it was beautiful when we got to like the vista. It was gorgeous, so it was worth it, but it was tough. It was very, very hard. I was like exhausted by the time we got home, and then we left the next day. So that was kind of a weird vacation, like just trying to like still have fun, but losing half of your vacation to sickness or the dread of sickness. So it really affected how I relaxed, and that affected my reading. So now that you kind of got my summary of how it went, I'll tell you about like what I started reading on the vacation, because I don't know, I think because everything was weird, I started like going back and forth between books, starting new books, not staying interested in things. I think when you're sick you kind of just do whatever makes you feel good. So that's why I kind of had a weird reading month. So I'll talk to you about what happened. So before, when I was going into vacation, I had 2 books I had already started, and that was The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, and I got farther in this. I am probably about, I don't know, 60% of the way through this, which is a little farther than I was in my mid-July wrap-up, but it's just taken me forever. I really liked The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, and this is not a long book, it's like 200 pages, but this one just is dragging for me, so I have a feeling I'm not going to love it unless it gets really good in the second half. So I didn't end up reading this really at all on vacation. I read it a little bit the day before we left and then put it on hold. The other one I had started right before we left was To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han, and I made it, I don't know, it's not very far. I guess that might be like a 1/5 of the way. And I was reading it on ebook, and I wasn't getting into it, and so I went to the library when I got home and got the physical book, because sometimes I found, like, especially with like a romance, I want to be able to like snuggle up with the book, and sometimes reading the ebook I can't really get into it, so that was the problem I had. I wasn't getting into it. So now that I have the physical book, I just got it yesterday from the library, I'm hoping I will get back into this. So once again, I did not read this on vacation, even though I had it downloaded, because we don't have reception. I have a subscription to Scribd, which is an online or app where you pay a monthly subscription, and you have access to like ebooks and audiobooks, and you can download books onto your phone so that if you don't have internet access, you can still read them. So I had downloaded a few books onto my phone before I left, and this is one of them, but I did not actually ever pick it up while I was on vacation. And then on the way to vacation, I had brought this book with me on the plane, A Long Way Home by Sru Breeley, which this is a nonfiction book I've talked to you about before. If you watched my nonfiction readathon TBR, this is one of the books I really wanted to read for the nonfiction readathon, and so that's why I brought it on vacation. And I started this on the plane, and the kids were just not cooperating. Like the baby would not sleep for the entire 4.5-hour flight, that I only made it like 7 pages and then put it down. And then I had trouble throughout vacation picking it up because I just really wanted something cozy while I was sick, so it took me a while. And then I ended up reading more of it on the flight on the way home because the baby slept more. So I'm at like page 70. But I find it's taking me a long time because it's hard to read. It's not like hard to read like the writing. Like the writing's really good. Like he writes in a way that's easy to relate to and understand. But the beginning part of this book is his life in India before he gets lost. So the concept of the book is that he was born in India to a poor family, accidentally got on a train, he was 5, so he ended up somewhere really far from home, couldn't find his way back, and so he ended up being adopted by a family from Tasmania, and he grew up and lived most of his life in Tasmania, and then at age 30 is trying to find his family again. But the beginning of the book, he's talking about his life back before he was lost, and it's just really hard to read because he was from a very, very poor family, and just the conditions and the way they have to like get food and just everything, it's really hard to read. It's kind of like when I read, what was the book? The book about the Left to Tell, which is about the Rwandan genocide and this woman's like survival during that. That one took me a long time to read too because I just had to keep putting it down. It was important to read, and I'm glad I read it, and I think I will feel that way when I'm done with this. It's just taking me a while to get through those really hard parts because it's depressing and it's hard to read about people living in such horrible conditions. So I'm hoping to get to this soon. And then, so like I said, when I got sick, I just wanted to like read something easy and cozy. So this is my first book I finished. When I was sick, I read the book Sapphire Blue by Kirsten Gier, and this is the second book in the Ruby Red series, which I read Ruby Red, I think that would be in my mid-July wrap-up, because I think I read it at the beginning of the month, and I had given it 3.5 stars because it wasn't like fabulous, it was alright. And so this is the continuation, and I'm giving this one 3 stars. So it was not as good as the first book, still kept me interested. It was easy to read when I was sick because I could read a little bit and then like fall asleep, and then when I woke up read a little bit more and fall asleep and not be like lost in the story. I can't really tell you what this specific book is about, but in general the series is about a time traveling family and this teenage girl who suddenly is starting to time travel, and there's like a whole mystery involved in this time traveling society. And like I said, the first one, I liked it okay, enough to like want to continue, but like I like this one even less. There just was less action, so it just seemed like more of the like teen angst instead of like the action I was kind of interested in the first one. But for being sick and wanting to fade in and out, it was fine. So I finished this book, 3 stars, and then as soon as I finished that, I started to read Emerald Green, and both of these I read on Scribd. I had them downloaded, and I started reading this, same thing when I was sick, just fade in and out, but I made it about not quite halfway, and then I got better, and then I just wasn't in the mood for this anymore, because once again, it was just not that exciting. Like, I don't know how I'm going to rate this one, but I feel like it just keeps going down. Hopefully, because the last one, the second half, will have more action happening. So far, just not much is really going on. Like, I feel like this probably could have been condensed to a duology, but, you know, we'll see how I feel when I get to the end. But since I got better, I just was not in the mood to read a slow book anymore. So I put this down. And then by that point, I was kind of not reading towards the end of vacation, other than, like I said, I read on the plane a little bit. The other thing I read on my vacation was an audiobook. I don't have a physical copy, but I was listening to The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie, which is a Hercule Poirot mystery. And I know I said in my last wrap-up that I was kind of giving up on the Poirot stories, but I'd only read the first one, so I thought maybe if I read one later on, I might like his character more. And so I picked one up, and the reason I did was because I took a class where I learned how to weave. I had never weaved before, and this place, like, they have like where you can take art classes, and it's free except for, I mean, you pay for supplies. And so I took this, I learned how to use a loom, and I made what I think will just be a kitchen towel because it's not that big. But I did this in like 5 hours of class spread out over a day and a half, and use the loom for the first time. And so if you've ever like seen how a loom works, it is really repetitious and kind of boring. So I got to listen to the audiobook while I did that, and I had it from script. So I made it about, I think, a third of the way through the audiobook by listening to it while making that. And so I'll finish it in the next week or so. And I am liking it a lot better than the first one, which was the Mysterious Affair at Styles, was the one I read before. And I just didn't really like the character of Poirot or Hastings, who are the main like duo that solve these crimes. And I'm liking them better in this one. So I think maybe she just developed as a writer, or developed the characters more as they went along. So maybe I'll just stick to the later Poirot ones. And then when I got home, I was like, I need to like read something that I really want to just read and finish. So I picked up a YA contemporary called The Start of Me and You by Emery Lord. I had never read any Emery Lord, but I saw, and this is actually a cover by, which I don't do very often, and it's just, I saw this cover on Book Outlet, and I just really liked the like white background, the like watercolor and all that. So I really didn't even pay too much attention to what the story is about, because I know that just from hearing about it that she writes like YA contemporary romance. So I was like, that sounds like something I can just sit down and finish in a couple days. And this is actually pretty big for a YA contemporary, but I finished this in less than 2 days. It was like I stayed up late into the morning. Like I think I stayed up till, I had the baby alone, so that was kind of part of why I stayed up, because it's harder for me to sleep while holding her at night. So I ended up staying up till like 3 o'clock in the morning and finishing this. I had started in the morning and made it till the middle of the night. Finished it, and I loved it. 5 stars, which is good after all this like kind of sporadic reading, to read something I really loved and didn't expect to love. I expected to enjoy it, and I expected to be like a average contemporary romance, maybe hopefully a little above average, but it was like, for me, what makes a perfect YA contemporary romance. She didn't create dumb characters. Like the teens in this book are full like 3-dimensional people. They have real personalities, and like you learn about all the characters instead of just the main character. So the basic synopsis of this is that the main character, Paige, she is starting her junior year, and the year before, so like a full year before this, her first boyfriend had died of a freak accident. And so the whole last year was kind of like her being the girl with the boyfriend who died. And so as she's starting her junior year, she really wants to like start fresh and start to live again, because she feels like she's just been living in kind of like grief and survival guilt the last year. So it has a lot of elements of how you move on, dealing with grief and mourning as a long-term thing, that you don't just like get rid of it, you know, like that just because somebody died a year ago doesn't mean you're over it. It means that you learn how to live with it as part of your life. And so there was a lot of that in there. This book does have a romance, but the romance is actually not the focus, which I love, that there was so much more about her life than just this romance. There's a lot about her family life. You get to know her parents and her sister, and like what they're going through, because her parents had divorced, and now there's some drama going on with her parents, and like how she is dealing with that with all this other stuff. And the thing I love the most about this is there is a great group of female friends. She has 3 female friends that are her group of like 4 girls, and they were just amazingly written. I think a lot of times in YA, they have trouble writing genuine female characters and female friends. Either in a romance, we learn about the friends, but then as soon as the romance starts, we like lose the friends. They like disappear from the story, which doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you don't forget about your friends just because you're starting a romance. And she doesn't do that in this. Her friends stay out through the entire thing. We really get to know the personality of each friend and how they support each other. And I just felt like they had so much depth as a friendship group that you could really picture being part of this group and how they've been such close friends for so long. So I loved that aspect of it. So all in all, I just really enjoyed that it covered all those things and it wasn't just a basic romance, which is good since it's so long. It covers a lot. So I would highly suggest this if you like YA contemporary and you want something that has a little more depth to the characters. And then after I finished that, it was only like a couple days before the end of the month or till Booktubeathon started, so I was like, well, I'll just pick up something real quick, and I picked up a mystery called The Last Child by John Hart, and I obviously did not get very far into it. I'm only like 30 some pages in, and it's interesting so far. I like the writing, so I'm hoping that like I will continue this, but I've started my Booktubeathon books that were on my TBR, so we'll see. This might have to wait a week before I get back to it, but I am going to continue this. So those are all the books that I started and a couple that I finished in the like second half of July. So I'm hoping that in August, once Booktubeathon ends, that I can get back to these and finish them all off, and then you will hopefully see them in either my mid or end of August wrap up, because I really need to stop like starting new books and not finishing them. Like, it's just too many. I always have like a couple books going at once, like usually like an audiobook, an ebook, and a real book, like 3, but this is like 6 books that I'm in the middle of reading, and I'm starting new ones for Booktubeathon, so I don't know what I'm doing. It's crazy, but that vacation just completely screwed me up. So sorry that was like a long ramble. Now this is the end of the regular video, but if you want to see a little compilation of my vacation, I promise there's nothing in from the days that we were sick. All of these pictures basically are from the last 4 days of our vacation. I made, and it's just a 2-minute video. There's actually 2 videos. One is a 1-minute compilation of like our vacation as a whole, a lot of the like kids and stuff like that, and family stuff. And then the second minute is a compilation of just that big hike we went on. And so if you want to see how beautiful it is out there with the mountains and the forests and snow on, you can see the snow on the mountains and all that stuff, you can watch that. Like I said, it's just 2 minutes, so it is not like sitting down and watching a giant slideshow of our vacation. I made it short. So if you want to stay for that, go ahead, and I will see you later. Bye.